Tracking the pulse of the road and the future of flight. From viral trends to policy shifts, we cut through the traffic to bring you the stories that drive us. Your fast-track guide to everything on the move starts right now. From the Billionaire News Channel studio to Mel 947 BFM, I'm Paolo del Rosario. This is Shift Happens. As the Philippines continues to face rising fuel costs and growing demands for more efficient transportation, the future of mobility is rapidly evolving. Today, electrification is no longer just a conversation about technology or sustainability. It is becoming a question of livelihood, resilience, and long-term stability for millions of Filipino transport professionals. With the rise of electric vehicles, many are now asking, can electrification help create a more stable and sustainable future for Filipino transport workers? From electric motorcycles to electric cars, the industry is now exploring new ways to reduce operating costs, improve efficiency, and build a more future-ready mobility ecosystem. But transitioning to electric mobility goes beyond just introducing new vehicles. It also requires accessible financing, reliable charging, infrastructure, government support, and stronger public-private cooperation to make the shift practical for everyday Filipino transport professionals. The Philippines is now at a critical point in defining what the future of professional mobility will look like. Now, to help us understand how electrification can support livelihood resilience and shape the future of transport in the Philippines, we are joined today by the Vice President for Cities of Grab Philippines, President of Grab Financial Group, and lead for the company's Eco Drive and Electrification Roadmap, CJ Lacsican. Thank you so much for joining us here
Maraming
today.
salamat, Paolo, for having me here.
You know, I love your titles because it really goes to show that we got the best expert for this particular topic. And that is really talking about the electrification, the accessibility of electrification first and foremost. Let's talk about the landscape currently with what we're seeing. Kasi we are now seeing more and more people adopt electrification or trying to shift to EVs, including our transport professionals. What do you see right now in terms of an opportunity here for Grab in particular with all of these changes happening?
Yes. I also like very much what you said, Paolo, about the fuel shock, no?
Yeah.
Hindi na naman to ngayon multiple times. And so what we're trying to build here is actually a kabuhayan resilience. And what we see in the industry, at least from Grab's standpoint now, majority of our drivers have the appetite. More than 70% of our drivers now actually want to electrify.
Okay.
So there is this inflection point of wanting to do it because it protects their livelihoods. And so with that, what we're trying to do is look at every piece of the supply chain and the puzzle, from capital to processing of their permits and licenses, into what it can do for them and bring for them and their families, right? So, iniisa-isa po namin yun.
Yeah.
And so, the current landscape is that marami sa kanila, kahit gusto nila, wala namang access to capital. And not because they cannot afford to pay or they're not credit-worthy, but because they have a very different landscape when it comes to earnings. Iba yung wala silang payslip, right? And so, this whole Eco Drive is actually bringing together the different industries, whether it's financial institutions or the OEMs or the brands that can lower the cost for them, but also our regulators, and to see how do we unblock challenges for them to electrify.
Kumbaga, one-stop shop siya.
Correct, correct. And this is not anyway about a brand. This is about our drivers, our operators who wants to electrify pero nahihirapan.
I don't think it's a surprise a lot of people want to shift to electric. You mentioned 70% of your drivers or operators who want to shift to electric. Nagulat ka ba knowing that the demand was that high, considering what we've experienced in the past? We mentioned the fuel shocks. Again, we always look at the Iran war being the inflection point, but really, it was even before that, the Ukraine war, including that.
Correct, correct. Hindi ako nagulat sa number na marami na. Nagulat ako how high it was.
Okay.
When we saw it. And also because when I go on ground, I speak to operators and drivers. Laging concern is not just the capital, but also everything around it, right? How to prepare themselves from after-sales service, you know, when it comes to repair, charging, maraming kailangan nilang i-address, right? So one part is capital, the other part is processing, the other part is yung day-to-day nila. And wanting it and making it happen are two different things. And so the other part that we're trying to solve is how do we make it happen for them?
Yeah. And the thing with electrification as well, apart from it the advocates of it initially will always talk about climate sustainability, would
Yes.
always talk about even when you take a look at the lifestyle, like it's just healthier to do so. It feels more practical now.
It is. And if you look at the savings, no, and if you look at across the Philippines, a large part of the taxi and the TNVS cars, right,
Yeah.
are sedan. So roughly about more than 60% of cars on the roads are sedan. And if you look at the comparison in terms of saving, 1 to 2 pesos per kilometer cost versus 7 to 8 pesos, the math is already there. So so they know that and they've seen that. And now parang, paano kami to join that bandwagon?
Yeah.
And nahihirapan sila.
Yeah, just looking at the raw numbers in general, it doesn't feel like we have to go too deep into the math. It just makes financial sense. But speaking about finances, one of the key barriers here is basically the cost, right?
Yes.
So EcoDrive is trying to make it easier for them, the operators, to shift to EVs. How do they do so specifically when we talk about the programs that you have to try and address yung initial barriers nila from a financial standpoint?
Yes. So what we're trying to do right now is address the first group na talagang nangangailangan mag-upgrade na anyway, right? Old vehicles and whatnot. So the first step is really to approach us, and we will help look at what sort of financing is available for them. So we have partners that we have in place for BPI, BDO, and we've also spoken recently to DTI to see what we can do to help together, right? And then we also spoke to the brands, so the car brands. How can we bring down that cost? Including, can we also make sure that after-sales service is actually better for them? Kasi yung problem po, a lot of our operators are used to, for many decades, 2 to 3 decades of their livelihoods, na pag may nasiraan sa kotse nila, sa garahe nila may pang spare parts sila, may automatic, may iba nga dyan, may fuel pump na eh. So, yun yung question, how do they change not only from the cost of acquisition of the cars, but also end-to-end?
Yeah.
So you talk about infrastructure kanina, you talked about charging, lahat yan magbabago. Because EV is fundamentally different. Even hybrid is a little bit different already.
Yeah.
And so this whole EcoDrive is, you approach us, we try to understand what you need, and then we connect the bridge. We make basically the bridge of everything.
It also feels like you're educating drivers in particular when it comes to EVs. Yeah.
Partly, yes. And so we also have trips that have been organized by our car brands to show them what it is and how it is done.
Yeah. Apart from that, there's also, that shift. We're talking about 4 wheels right now.
Yes.
2 wheels is also a factor here, and Grab also services that.
It is. And when we talk about cost comparisons,
Yeah.
the savings really is a little bit less in 2 wheels, also because the consumption is lower. This also happening. However, there's also a regulatory conversation right now.
Yeah.
Discussing what is allowed from a 2-wheel standpoint. Kasi yun medyo, very nascent compared to our 4-wheel.
Yeah. And again, the hope is that it becomes, siguro we see 2-wheel electrification almost the same as we see motorcycle drivers. How far are we from seeing 2-wheel deliveries conducted from electric? How
They're both medyo catching up.
Yeah, it's not there yet,
It's
right?
not there yet.
Not there
It's not
yet.
there yet. But it will help many. In fact, during the fuel crisis, we've also seen a lot of drivers move to even bicycle.
But are we already starting to see that electrification, because the biggest issue when it comes to electrification normally is the range, the reliability. Some people are still a bit wary. Relatively bagong technology to. When you consider the whole history of the automotive industry dito sa Pilipinas. How ready are our electric vehicles, based on your experience in particular, to meet the demands that is required of a Grab driver, a Grab operator?
It is a challenge we all have to unblock together in the industry, right? Medyo malayo.
Yeah.
Also catching up. So what the brands are also doing now is helping drivers. When you buy, they give you an extra charger for your home. So that's one of the things that they're addressing, but on a more immediate level. But
Yes.
on the long term, we do have to build. And we are having conversations with CPOs so that we can see where in the country we can build. The problem is not also, in this space, it's not so much capital the problem. The problem is space.
Yeah.
Saan mo ilalagay sa Manila? Puno na lahat. And you have to be positioned in a good spot so that when you run out of juice, you can just park somewhere and charge, right?
Yeah, it feels like we're talking about an infrastructure problem.
Yes,
It feels like that is always the issue when it comes
Yes.
to electric vehicles, the infrastructure in terms of yung charging and
Yes.
making sure that range anxiety stops becoming a thing.
Yes. The good thing, though, is that you see it's really an inflection point in the Philippines. You see industries going to it. Like, for example, you see malls allowing parking with charging. You see other brands looking into converting their existing parking spaces kasi wala nang space.
That's true.
So it's moving to the right direction. We just need to all move at the right, speed as well. Kasi direction is there na eh. It's the speed and helping our operator groups and taxi groups
Is
to
that the-
also get into it.
I'm sorry for interrupting, but is
Sure.
that the biggest practical barrier in terms of electrification?
Well, not only. Marami pong barriers in the Philippines. There's obviously the cost. We have, there's energy mix in the country.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to go there. But essentially, all of these has to go into play to make it happen for our operators and drivers in the industry. That's why we're calling the Eco Drive not just for us, it's for everybody in the industry.
Yeah, we could go left, right, and center with what needs to be addressed. You talk about energy mix kanina, ibang show ata na yun. I mean, there's just so much to talk about when it comes to that.
It is, but what I'm very happy and very proud is that we have partners, that are helping us and our drivers move faster and better.
Yeah, I am so interested in the roadmap of Grab, but we're going to have to take a quick pause for the moment. In fact, we're going to be discussing that later on. We're going to take a short break, and when we return, we will talk more about the livelihood and the shift to electric mobility, as well as the roadmap, as I mentioned a while ago. So don't go away. We'll be right back. This is still Shift Happens on BNC, the Billionaire News Channel, and Mellow 947 DFM.
Looking for the perfect escape? Discover Club Nalu, a serene beachfront retreat where stillness meets style. Nestled along the quiet shores of Bacnotan in La Union, Club Nalu is designed for slow mornings, ocean breezes, and moments that help you unwind. From cozy rooms and sun-drenched villas to relaxing spaces inspired by nature. Every corner invites you to pause, breathe, and recharge. Club Nalu, come as you are and leave feeling a little lighter. Book now at clubnalu.ph.
Welcome back. You're still watching Shift Happens, and we're still with CJ Lacsican, the Vice President for Cities of Grab Philippines, President of Grab Financial Group, and the lead for the company's Eco Drive and Electrification Roadmap. I could mention so much more, but we won't have enough time. Again, you're still watching the Billionaire News Channel and on Mellow 947 BFM. Let's talk about the roadmap here for Grab, because right now, currently, electrification is starting, but it's still not the majority of the fleet of Grab. Where are we right now when it comes to electrification, and how quickly do you see it, or at least do you intend it to go when it comes to the electrification of the operators for Grab?
Yes. So right now, actually, when I said 70% want to actually electrify, syempre hindi naman lahat yun kahit want, kailangan, right? We have to be very practical in how we develop this, right? And so we're looking at really aging vehicles na kailangan na anyway to upgrade. And if you upgrade, go for more sustainable cars na rin, kahit papaano, right? So we are looking at 20% in the next 2 years.
20% in 2 years.
It's a very deep ambition, but this is also in alignment to what the drivers really want. So we have cars anyway we have to update, so we will do that. And with them, we will work together with our banks, together with our regulators, so that we can transform them.
Yeah, and it just goes to show that even though we are pushing for more electrification, there is still a big role for yung mga ICE.
Correct. Marami pa rin maiwan. Obviously, because we also don't want them in the middle of it, magsasayang naman ng pera.
Exactly.
So it's really how to help make the whole sort of pool more resilient with any of those shocks. The ICE will always be there, and it's a challenge actually. But they're also a viable model, a little bit more expensive, but if you still have, if your car is still viable, why spend a lot?
Yeah.
It also doesn't make sense economically.
Yeah, and the demand is still there.
It's there,
Yeah.
there, definitely. And they're also very comfortable with it. But obviously, dahil nga sa fuel shocks and of course the resilience that we want to build with their livelihoods, we do want to position already the movement.
It's interesting because as we take a look at the push, we've seen the government also make a push policy-wise when it
Yes.
comes to yung mga EVs natin. Has that also played into a factor in Grab's decision-making process in terms of yung push nila?
Yes.
Seeing this opportunity in particular when it comes to EVs?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the push is actually helping a lot of our drivers make it better for them from an economic standpoint. Not also that, but also from an application standpoint. Kasi pag EV ka, and we are in discussion with our regulators on how to speed up their application.
Yeah.
So merong mga benefits for sure. Also because the other part is the equation on the OEM side of things.
Yeah.
We have excise taxes differences. So may pagkakaiba talaga. So yes, it is helping. And it's been there for a while, ha, Paolo, alam mo yan. It's been there for a while. Pero ngayon pa talaga na parang, wait, how do we take advantage of that?
Yeah. It's when we talk about taking advantage of the situation, it always feels like we had a discussion a while ago talking about how when there are certain opportunities or crises even, or maybe even tragedies, we talk about the wars happening over in the Middle East and the sudden price spikes in terms of fuel. The time to change is now for some
It is
people, for a lot of people.
Yes.
And when we take a look at all of that and this almost rapid electrification, is the term rapid actually accurate here?
It is.
Yeah.
It is rapid. And you're right. The whole evolution actually is there. And we should take advantage. And yun yung challenge now, Paolo, is that you see it moving. And yet when you look at our transport industry, maiiwan sila eh. If
Yeah.
you look at our taxi industry, medyo napag-iwan na nga.
Yeah.
So, the next question is, how do we help them move faster? Kasi ayaw mo silang maiwan.
Yeah.
The whole digital economy moved, ayaw mo silang maiwan. This whole electrification movement is happening, definitely ayaw mo silang maiwan.
Yeah.
And they need help.
Can we look at any of our neighbors around the region to try and see what are the ways that we can actually apply yung best practices? Because we are by far not the first region who has started to electrify yung mga transport operators nila in various ways,
Yes.
right? So are there any examples or really role models that we can look at?
I'm happy you mentioned that, Paolo, because also Grab has a lot of businesses outside of the
Yes.
Philippines, right, in Southeast Asia. And so we learn from each other. In fact, we are learning in terms of, the utilization of the vehicles because that's how you earn economically. So
Yeah.
yes, in short, we are learning from our counterparts in different parts of Southeast Asia and bringing that to the Philippines. The Eco Drive is not just born in the Philippines. It's actually a regional push to say, how do we help our taxi operators and drivers?
Yeah.
Because we see their earnings eh. And it's no joke that suddenly there's 40% lesser that you bring home to your family. Ano pang makakain mo, right? Lahat nasa gas na lang. And so, the urgency is there. And nobody's looking at them eh.
Yeah.
Kasi mahirap eh. You can't blame also financial institutions where you say, how do we make them credit-worthy? When wala silang payslip na papakita. Kasi they're nano-entrepreneurs eh.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I have my own earnings. So kami naman, how do we help unlock that? Of course, with driver consent, we can share data. Ito po yung ang kinikita na ating mga driver. And the drivers, and it's a proof that our drivers are earning. It's just that in recent months, medyo mahirap.
Yes.
Right? And so, you're right in saying that we are actually learning from our counterparts in the region. Not only that, looking at also cars. How do we drive better economics for our cars so that ma-utilize ng, better,
Yeah.
optimize better. They can get better take home.
Yeah.
How do we push, as Grab, this is our main function in this Eco Drive, is how do we make sure we give them sufficient demand, balanced with the right pricing, obviously compliant with the government, to our consumers. Trabaho naman yun.
Yes.
And what we're asking the brands, the OEM brands and the banking partners is help us make this possible for our drivers and operators.
Because whether you like it or not, it really does take a village to try and make everything viable.
It is. We are very excited, but at the same time, and this is also why I'm here, I'm asking everybody who can be part of this Eco Drive to help us move the industry in the right direction.
For those who just tuned in, you're still listening to Mellow 947 BFM simulcast on BNC, the Billionaire News Channel. I'm Paolo del Rosario. Of course, don't worry, we're not going on break yet. I heard the music playing. Just so you know, direct, wag muna. But, CJ, because the reason why I want to ask those questions a while ago when it comes to yung sa region natin, it's because we always want a proof of viability because there are going to be some people who will always be doubting na this is the way to go. But based on what you've seen looking around the region, how confident are you that the path that we're trying to take here in the Philippines through this EcoDrive project is not just viable, but really good for those who will be the recipients and, of course, those who will also have to invest and try to make adjustments to make things work?
With the willing partners that we have today, very confident. Because it's not just us. Not only our drivers, not only our operators, but our financial institutions that partnered with us, our car makers that actually partnered with us. It is very possible, very confident. Because we're also telling them, look, dapat mura yung kotse nyo. Or affordable, give us better cars, give us better mileage, right? And so we're asking many things for them, and the conversation is not only happening in the Philippines. We're looking at it Southeast Asia wide.
Yeah.
To make sure that we do have cars that is, cost effective, but also for our drivers that we have better financing for them. We're talking to multiple partners, Paolo. It's amazing the amount of appetite we're getting to help our economy, our transport drivers and operators.
Yeah, is there a disconnect between the drivers and some of the fleet owners? Because sometimes iba talaga yun, right? There are some those with a fleet, those who want to convert or at least to electrify their fleet may have a bit of a disconnect with some of the drivers on the road. Is that something that happens?
In the past, there's been some of those sentiments.
Yeah.
I recently have this conversation with somebody from Davao who's head of our transport operator group, the taxi industry. And what struck me was that he said, look, CJ, kailangan masaya yung driver namin.
Yeah.
Kasi kung hindi sila masaya, iiwan kami. And that means I have no drivers for my cars. So the disconnect has narrowed. Also because they want to make sure that when they move, the drivers are able to move with them. And that's why the anxiety of paano pag maubusan ako ng juice in the car, paano pag misiraan ako, it actually boils down to confidence of their drivers. How will I handle if hindi ako kabisado yung kotse?
Yeah.
And so the disconnect is actually, the gap is narrowing, which is a good sign that actually it is now moving as an ecosystem talaga in the right path.
I'm glad you mentioned Davao because sometimes people tend to just focus on Metro Manila. We're doing the show actually coming from Metro Manila, and a lot of the policy makers are based here, and sometimes hindi na pinag-iisipan yung what's happening in the Mindanao area or the Visayas area. You've obviously seen the scene all over the country. When you talk about electrification, are we seeing perhaps in the Visayas and Mindanao, maybe a bit lagging behind when it comes to the metro area here in Luzon?
It is lagging a little bit, but it's also catching up.
Okay.
Last week, we just onboarded close to 100 taxi EV in Baguio. There's more coming. There's Iloilo coming. There's more cities coming. It is lagging, yes. But it is also trying to catch up.
And I would also argue they may be lagging right now, but they may have the one thing that Metro Manila has, which is space. Exactly, right? But we talk about opportunity. Is that the opportunity for the Visayas and Mindanao regions to actually apply electrification better than Metro Manila? Because they have space.
Faster, yes. I'd like to believe yes. But we also need to speed up. Manila is the core of everything in terms of the number of transport, the volume of people. Volume of people needing public transport every single day. You're right, they can catch up faster, but Manila, we need help.
Oh yeah, for sure. Na-excite ako dun. All right, I want to talk about the future here because right now, it feels like we're still in a period of transition. We talked about the roadmap a while ago, and I am curious to know what would make the process easier. You said 20% in a couple of years is a very ambitious goal in terms of yung fleet ninyo, electrifying it. What would really make the process more painless, not just for the operators, not just for Grab, but really the society as a whole to start adopting electric vehicles or electrify their own mobility?
Well, three things, and this is what we're already addressing as we speak. The financial capital, the access to capital is one. The second really is infra, and this is also why we are getting our hands into it. The third one is really also our partnerships with government and our regulators, is to really see how else we can help our drivers speed up application process, even as simple as that. Let us know whether there are ways to further improve having, ownership, the total cost of ownership of these cars. So these three things have to happen. And this is also why these three things, we are very much involved.
And in an ideal world, 5 to 10 years from now, give or take, let's use that timeline, what would a successful electrification look like to you?
So the goal has always been building a more resilient livelihood, kabuhayan, right? So if you ask me, 10 years down the road, if we are able to stretch a peso, meaning I'm able to cut my cost and give to my family, that's a win, right? Overall, electrification and transport industry in the Philippines, moving into the right direction, whether it's half of the fleet or one half of, I think it will happen in any case. But the building of the infra has to follow. But I really do hope that at the end of the day, kasi pwede din yun, Paolo, di ba? Magtaas yung presyo ng pag-charge, right? At the end of the day, the point is to give better livelihoods to our taxi operators and drivers.
For those who want to know more about this program in particular, where can they go and read up about it, or maybe even try and participate? Because we're talking about a lot of ambition, a lot of excitement. So where can they find out more about it?
So in Marikina, we have a very big livelihood center. Go there anytime. We're available. We are also doing a lot of posts and information. Reach out. We're very happy to talk to anyone.
And we're very happy that you came to talk to us.
Yes,
and
hopefully, happy to be here.
Yeah, I know, and I really hope you choose to be here next time, and no one's trying to force you to be here. I'm staring at certain people in the room. But all joking aside, CJ, it was really a pleasure to talk to you, and I can't wait to discuss further how far this project has gone.
Thank you.
It still feels like we're taking baby steps, but we can go on a sprint.
Yes, it is. And thank you for having us here. I'm not only representing myself, but also representing Grab, but also our drivers and operators in the industry. We all need the help to make ourselves more electrified, more sustainable.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, that is CJ Lacsican. She is the Vice President for Cities of Grab Philippines, President of Grab Financial Group, and the lead for the company's Eco-Drive and Electrification Roadmap. CJ, thank you so much for being here. All right, so that concludes our roundup of the stories driving the industry forward. Ako po si Paolo del Rosario. Join us again tomorrow on Shift Happens, your fast-track guide to everything on the move. Keep it here on BNC, the Billionaire News Channel, and Mellow 947 BFM.